Welcome to the Stress Free Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Block. As always, I want to inspire, entertain, and educate you on the best tools and technologies out there. My goal is to help make your practice and career more profitable, efficient, and most importantly, more enjoyable. And check out all of my nonfiction and children's books on Amazon, and check out the stressfreedentist.com for any upcoming events. And if you're feeling you're a dental professional that's burnt out, or you just feel stuck or want to get to that next level, visit the International Academy of Dental Life Coaches, or www.iadlc.com, and we'll get you matched up with a life coach that understands dentistry. I also wanted to thank our amazing sponsor, Equa Marketing. They have helped me and my practice over the years to improve with SEO and website performance. And to find out how you can make your practice dominate in your area, go to www.equa.com/MSMSFD to book your complimentary meeting. Again, that's www.ekwa.com/MSMSFD. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode. And today I'm joined by Bob Spiel, who is the founder of Spiel Consulting and Dentist Partner Pros, as well as the host of the Just Say No to the DSO podcast. Bob, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Eric. Great being with you.
Yeah, I've been listening to your podcast, and it's really been informative. It's a big wake up call, great information, no BS, and anyone out there, I recommend checking it out. It's a great listen. Bob, how did you first get involved with helping dentists?
Well, long story short, Eric, I was consulting in medicine after I was a hospital and surgical center CEO, and that job ended kind of unceremoniously about 17, 18 years ago. Got into consulting as I was looking for another CEO job, and the consulting gigs just started coming more and more. And about a year into that, I had a friend who told me he had a friend who was a dental consultant looking to be able to sell his practice. Turns out I didn't buy it, but he mentored me for a couple of years. And honestly, Eric, the first time I jumped into a dental practice with him in 2008, he showed me what dentistry is really all about. I fell in love with it, and that was almost 17 years ago, and it's been just an incredible ride. I love this industry, and I love what it does and how it changes lives, and especially just the dynamics of teamwork and leadership and really great patient service that makes a difference in a dental practice.
And how exactly do you help dentists? Are you a consultant, a CPA? You're an MBA? How do you help dentists?
Yeah, great question. I'm an MBA. And so in particular, there are two things that I've done in my career. The first is to really help practices learn how to do more with less stress and less time. Okay. And that's really kind of been the whole thrust of my consulting practices, to work with practices, help them find what barriers are getting in the way, but help teams develop the solutions themselves with some guidance, instead of just showing up with a book and saying, here, this is how you do it, follow my game plan and you'll be successful. So that's one of the thrusts, with a real special emphasis on leadership and team building in particular, because I've learned over the years that practices can't run faster than their leader. So if a dentist really wants to be able to take their practice up to the next level, it starts with themselves. It doesn't finish with themselves, but it starts with themselves. And then the other piece that I've really tried to accentuate is helping hire really high quality partner associate dentists, because I found that's a huge problem inside the industry, is being able to find dentists who match, who fit, who stay, and they make money for the practice. And we've arrived at a solution that has a really great track record. Over 85% of the time we find the right person, they stay for over a year, and they become a real important part of the practice. And so both of those things are ways that I've really tried to contribute to the industry and help dentists and their practices get better.
Can you go back to the leadership comment? Because
Yeah, you bet.
I struggle with that every day. I was not a natural born leader, but as dentists, even if you're an associate dentist, more importantly, if you're an owner dentist, you have to be a leader.
Yeah, you do.
I wish I'd really gone back and didn't take that, 18th course on extractions and bone grafting, but did more courses on leadership
hmm
and public
hmm
speaking. What are your thoughts there on helping a dentist become a leader?
The first thought, Eric, is that anybody can learn how to become a better leader if they just have a couple of things. And the number one thing that I say is they need to be self-aware. And the other thing is they need to be humble. Okay, but with those two qualities combined, um, it's learning what it means to actually lead a group, not fear conflict, okay, but how to help steer and create vision, direction, and pace. Because, yeah, you're exactly right. Whether you're an associate or the owner, we're hierarchical beings. As people, we look to the top. And given that, it's vital to be able to realize, you know what, whether I know it or not, I'm leading my practice. The question is, am I leading my practice well? And if there's room for improvement, then one of the first places that I recommend a dentist to go to is get a copy of a book that I wrote about 8 years ago on small business leadership called Flip Your Focus. Okay. Um, I had some fantastic mentors early in my career that really taught a lot about leadership, and they were great leaders in and of themselves. And they really taught kind of a mindset as well as three different skill sets that are really important to be able to pick up. And if you can do these things well, you're going to be successful, even if you're not, a Bill Gates or a Tim Cook. Okay. But if you can just learn to think of yourself as a teacher and then realize that your job is to set expectations clearly, create a culture of participation where your team actually gets to problem solve and own their solutions, and then lastly, show a lot of appreciation. And you'll win. Okay. You really will.
Yeah, you mentioned the word humble. For all the dentists out there listening, it's okay to not know something and say you don't,
Yeah.
and that you'll find out. I really think staff appreciates that, and you nailed it. Get the team involved. Make sure they're known that they're appreciated. But you can do it. I really struggled with it, but I'm getting better at it.
That's great.
Great advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you
Yeah,
go?
anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, and one of the coolest things is, and I'm sure you've seen this in your practices, you've done it. Your practice has started to change, probably gotten busier, but also the loads on you have gotten less. And that's what leadership can do in a dental practice.
And the culture is better, and I enjoy going to work more.
Exactly. That's right. Yep. Cool.
Um, can you talk to me about the associate dentists, the matching process,
hmm
and what goes along with, really finding that great match between the associate and the owner?
Yeah, you bet. Love to. Let me give you a little bit of context on this because I've hired probably 1,000 people during my career. Before I got into healthcare, I was an operations manager back in the 90s and ran some fairly large divisions and entities. And as I got into dental consulting, I was mentored by some really great individuals that had been doing it for a long time. And one of them by the name of Linda Miles and I became great friends. And on just a kind of a flippant phone call, she mentioned that 75% of the time associateships fail in dentistry. And Eric, I'd been working in medicine before this. I'd hired doctors, no such failure rate among medical doctors. And I thought, what the heck? Why, how can that be? And I said, Linda, why? And she said, nobody really knows. It's just how it is. Well, trying to peel this onion apart further and figure out what the deal is, a relationship between two dentists is the closest thing to a marriage besides a marriage. Because you share the same space, you use the same equipment, you use the same team, and you have the same patients. So you're in each other's sandbox all day long. Okay, not even medical doctors have that type of close quarters. And so think of it kind of like two executive chefs being in the same kitchen. And if they don't really match and get along well, it's going to explode. That's what happens in dental practices. Is too often dentists will look for somebody who has a license and a pulse and, go to dinner, and it'll be a really quick decision and bring them on hoping that it's going to work for them. Okay. Instead, what we do is we approach this as one of the most important relationships that you're going to have in your life. So we understand clearly who's going to fit in this practice by interviewing the doctors and the team, as well as doing personality surveys. So we've got a really clear picture of A, the culture, then B, we go through and create what we call an avatar of the ideal candidate. And with that, then that's what we use for every person that we talk to about the opportunity. And we're always holding them up, asking the right questions, doing the right surveys to see do they match this characteristic or not. If they do, great, we keep them moving. If they don't, then we say thank you, but this isn't the right place for either one of you. And we just keep going through this process. It's like a sieve until you reach a point where you say, you know what, this person we can actually quantify as like a 90% match across all the criteria you've given us. Let's have a conversation now, test the chemistry. And so that's what we do. And it's really exciting to see it happen, because when it's right, it's fantastic. And so my business partner, Brighton Nealt, who's now CEO of Dentist Partner Pros, has made this observation. An associate in a practice is kind of like an amplifier, and they either amplify the bad or they amplify the good, but there's nothing in between. Okay. So when they're bad, it just makes everything even feel worse. But when they're good, it amplifies the good. And it's exciting to see what happens when you've got a group of dentists that really enjoy working with each other. They harmonize well, and they're all pointed in the same direction.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it's like a business marriage. Partnerships are tough. I have a partnership, and we have different philosophies, and we're different ages, and ultimately it's all about communication. Just like a marriage. But
Mm-hmm.
you're right. I probably see him, sometimes more than I see my family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a delicate thing.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you start the podcast?
I started the podcast because I've seen a consolidation happen before dentistry, and that was in medicine. So when I was a hospital surgical center CEO, this consolidation effort had been going on for a while, but it was getting even more profound. And then after the passage of the Affordable Care Act and kind of the whole recalibration that happened within the medical community, even more consolidation and more doctors becoming hospitalists and joining groups and other things. And frankly, seeing that through their lens, it wasn't positive. And if you see the net outcome now in 2025, almost 20 years later, in terms of patient care within medicine, it hasn't gotten better. It's only gotten worse. The lines have gotten longer. But the biggest thing is the medical doctors do not like where they are. So as I started to see this advent, back 8, 9 years ago of DSOs, and they were still kind of small, COVID money really put fuel to the fire. And suddenly people were being contacted all over the place saying, sell, sell, sell. And I realized that dentists were not getting the full picture. Okay. Because the in particular, the private equity entities that are doing these type of roll-ups really have one goal and one goal only, and that's to make money. And given that fact, then they will really try to massage any deal that they possibly can to be able to make it appear like you've won the lottery, but in reality, they just took your practice for next to nothing. And knowing that dentists are fact finders, and if you give them the right facts and you present it to them in a way that they can begin to digest it, Nate Williams, who's my co-host, and I, we just decided, you know what, we've got to do something about this because dentists aren't getting the complete picture. And Nate is a CPA. I'm an MBA. He's a fantastic analyst, much better than I am. But he's reviewed over 100 DSO deals, looking at the actual term sheets and the letters of intent. He's never found one, Eric, that's a pro doctor. Everything is tilted toward the DSO. And the reality is that most of them now are put together in a way that if a dentist could just keep working for another 5.5 years, they could literally burn down their practice and be equally as better off as if they had sold. And we decided we got to do something. And it seemed like a podcast is the best way to try to get information out quickly and hopefully get it viral so that dentists are telling dentists, so that this information is starting to spread throughout the industry. And it seems like it's working. Our payback, frankly, is when we get emails and texts from doctors who are saying, I tore up the deal, or, I've just said no, or I was thinking of going this direction and now I get it, and I want to go a different direction. And that's our reward.
And the podcast is called Just Say No to the DSO.
Just say no to the DSO. Exactly.
And now, since you've started the podcast, what have you learned that you didn't expect in doing this podcast and interviewing all these different doctors or DSOs?
hmm Yeah. The first thing, honestly, that we learned was it's a lot worse than we thought. Okay. And getting even more worse as time goes by. Um, because money is no longer free, the DSOs are now kind of playing what I call the circus clown game with a little balloon. They don't have as much cash that they can offer, so they're squeezing the other end and they're making these equity promises huge, and they're not real. Okay. Another thing that we found is that the brokers, the majority of them are now DSO salesmen because they have 80% less work and they get 2 to 3 times the commission because they're getting commissioned on the total deal and not just the cash portion. So if the number is inflated dramatically, then as a broker, you just made a killing off that deal. When you realize that in the end you walk away from it, it's the dentist's responsibility after that. You look like you just, as a broker yourself, won the lottery and realize the dentist is really going to have to suffer down the road big time, but you're not going to be there to even pick up the pieces. You're on the next deal. The third thing that I found is that the DSO, because of these inflated values, that we've had a general inflation in all valuations. Okay. So it used to be, a normal number for a private practice sale was going to be between 70 to 75% of 3-year average collections. That number is now getting jumped up to 90 to 100 to 110% of average collections. And I personally think that's unsustainable because the buyers just can't get out from underneath that note. But that's been an impact of the DSOs directly on the entire industry. And then I think the last thing, Eric, I'd say is they're not as big as they seem. Okay. There's kind of this puffer fish experience that you have with DSOs because they bought off many of the dental schools. They've bought off most of the trade magazines, and they end up in the shows looking like there's this huge entity, that we've got endless cash and we're here to take care of you. But they're still only 20% of total dental GDP. They haven't hit the tipping point, and it's honestly getting them harder for them to actually get dentists to say yes these days, because I think more and more are getting educated about how bad these deals really are.
Can you explain typically a DSO will offer a value such as 10x or 15x
hmm
your EBITDA, and then
hmm
a percent of equity. Can you explain all that to the audience, how that works?
Honestly, the EBITDA number is just meant to create a hook. So a doctor will look at that number and then believe, man, I just hit the lottery. I have generational wealth now. I can't believe somebody is going to pay this much for my practice. Okay. So EBITDA is frankly just smoke and mirrors. All right. They can make the number whatever they want to make. The bigger question is, what are they paying in cash? And what am I giving up in cash for the 5-year work back requirement that I have to be able to keep this deal together? And then what sort of requirements are they placing on me for days to work, hours to work, as well as growth requirements? Okay. To use a very simple analogy, the EBITDA is designed to be, and the valuation number is designed to be kind of like at a party. And let's say that you're a married man or a married woman, but the prettiest girl or most handsome man you've ever seen in your life shows up and starts to pay attention to you. Okay. And you can't believe that this is happening. And your mind starts to go fuzzy, and you can't really pay attention to anything else besides this conversation that you're having. That's what the EBITDA does. That's what the valuation does. They want you to think, game over, this is it. I don't care what anybody else says. I'm going to do this because dang it, I need generational wealth because I know how hard I've worked, and you know what? It's time for me to get mine. What Nate has found, though, as you've stripped these deals apart, is that there are so many underlying um, requirements and assumptions of doubling and tripling growth, of how much are you actually giving back? What are they going to pay you as a percentage compared to what you were paying yourself? So if you look at the cash side of this and forget that equity is actually even going to happen, because rarely, if ever, does it. It's just meant to create this cloudy mind that thinks, okay, I'm in. If you look at the cash side of it, today, the worst deal that we have seen, a doctor is being offered $36 million for a practice. Okay. But once you stripped it all apart, Eric, he was actually going to pay the DSO $2.5 million to buy his practice. Okay. So don't take the hook. Don't take the number. Don't believe this is true, because it's not. And that's why we say just say no to the DSO.
Now, is it pretty typical for there to be a 5-year work back?
Yes, very typical.
Are you seeing some
Didn't
less,
used to
some
be.
more?
No, that's typical. Okay. And to answer your question, what else is surprising? Many of the DSOs are not interested in the older generational doctor who's 60, 61, has 5 years left to go. They're now looking for doctors that are more in their 40s and 50s who they know are going to stay, and they can stay longer than the 5 years to begin with. Because in addition, they've got non-competes and non-solicits, non-disparagement agreements, etc. So if they can get you hooked, they want to keep you longer than 5 years. And if they can successfully do that, then in essence, they've bought your practice for nothing, or you've paid them to buy your practice.
So essentially, if you just kept that practice for those 5 years and kept being the owner, you would make more money than this payback or work back period with the DSO.
Yes. Yes, you would be. Under normal growth assumptions, yes, absolutely.
Now, can you explain also about I know dentists are under, tremendous amount of stress with the staffing issues
Yeah,
out
they
there
are.
going
Yeah.
on, and doesn't seem to be, the issue doesn't seem to be getting any better. And it's not just dentists, it's many industries, but
Right. Yeah. Great point.
I know I've heard dentists say, they're just going to sell to the DSO because they don't want to deal with the management portion or the business side of the practice. They just want to practice dentistry. And if they have a DSO help them with the management side of things, then a lot of their stress will go away.
Well, to circle back to the earlier conversation about leadership, the fact that we're hierarchical beings means that whoever is the most senior person in that practice in the moment, they're the leader.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this whole idea that the DSO is going to make my life easier and I'm going to just have to come in and practice dentistry is a house of cards. It's not true. That's not how we work. You're the on-site manager. You're the person that gets to make the day-to-day decisions. You're still going to be as knee-deep in it as ever. Frankly, if you feel like you need help with management, there are lots of very talented practice management consultants that can help you learn how to actually lead and manage your team for a lot less than giving your practice away for nothing. If HR is something that you feel kind of blindsided on, there's some great companies in dentistry that help you on the HR side with administering things, with making sure that if you have to let somebody go, you've got all your T's crossed and I's dotted, etc. There's so many answers to the stressors that dentists feel that they can find that are so much less expensive than selling to a DSO. And who's to say that the DSO actually does it any better than the dentists themselves? And maybe they do, but Eric, there's also this scenario of, the next PE group that may buy this rolled up DSO. What do they know about dentistry? And what are they going to do? Okay. So take responsibility for your practice. Don't sell the work of your hands. Find the resources you need. Create that board of directors that can help you run and lead your practice effectively, and then harvest the results of that.
Yeah, you're so right that, if you do sell or give up a large portion of control of your practice, you're still the leader, you're still the dentist, and
Yeah.
ultimately going to fall on your shoulders. So why not be 100% owner and not give
hmm
away, a big portion of your practice? What can a private practice doctor do now? What would your advice be there?
To be able to just say no, but say yes to the future of their practice.
Yeah.
Okay. It really depends where they are in their growth cycle. But I would have to say that every practice, every private practice could benefit from the doctor learning how to lead better, how to hire better, look at your systems. And a quick way of looking at systems is to ask yourself, and I don't mean your practice management system like EagleSoft or Dentrix, look at how the patient flows through your practice and where does the next team member in line end up with surprises or guesses, and diagnose where you're missing things, where things aren't complete, and try to come up with actual action plans that will allow them to uh, do a better job. Okay. And don't be afraid of a DSO opening up next door to you.
Hmm.
If you can play the game well and excel in not only, well, if you lead well, you're going to play the game much better. Okay. If you have your systems much tighter, your patients are going to have a much better experience. And then just be personable, because dentistry, first and foremost, is a relationship game. You know, practices, the most valuable, successful practices that I've encountered as a practice coach are those that really play the relationship game well. And when patients come in, they feel valued, they feel informed, and they're taken care of extremely well. And they tell their friends and they never leave unless they have to move.
Actually, you just mentioned the words "tell your friends." So I did go through an exercise couple of years ago, a few years ago, where I had my practice evaluated by a couple different DSOs. I think that was mistake number one, is having them evaluate it.
hmm
Number two, and I can repeat these. They did mention the equity events, which I still don't really even understand what that means. Um, and then number three, there was bonuses for referring other practices, so like the tell your friends type of thing.
Exactly, yes. Why? Because they're a Ponzi scheme. Eric, I hate to be blunt, okay, but they are. Uh, Tell your friends because they want to A, reward you for bringing another practice in, and B, to another interesting thing that you asked, what have I learned that I didn't know up front? Dentists are naturally suspicious. I think by personality style and by the just the number of times that people tell you something, but something else happens. Okay. But there's an interesting thing that occurs when a dentist tells a dentist. Those suspicions start to drop. And so if a dentist can bring another dentist into this conversation, their fear and their suspicion lessens. And then they're willing to be much more open to whatever the salesperson is going to say, and feel like the dentist that made the introduction has their best interest at heart, not realizing, frankly, that they're probably going to make about 100 grand just by, if they sign, making the introduction to happen to begin with.
And then the whole equity event and the stock sales, I
hmm
really didn't understand it then. I still don't understand it. Because that was a big, thing that they dangled. And I went through the
Yeah,
process. It just
yeah.
at the time, you know, I didn't feel like it was the right thing for me.
hmm
Um, I'm glad I didn't, because I still got another, my kids are 10 and 12, so I've got another,
Yeah.
you know,
You got 15 or 20 years
yeah.
ahead of you.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
hmm
Can you explain the equity event and how that works with the shares?
Sure. Well, first, to just understand that equity is until something goes on the public market. Okay, and I'm going to say that again. Until something goes on the public market, equity is whatever you say it can be. So, for instance, a DSO could claim that this equity is going to be worth, like this one deal that they offered him 36 million bucks. They're only giving him $2.5 million in cash up front. Okay, with then $5 million based upon certain, benchmarks that he was going to hit from year 1 to year 5. But the big payoff is this equity number, and where they say the equity is going to come from is through roll-ups. All right, so think of it like the Pac-Man strategy, where you've got a small fish eaten by a bigger fish, eaten by a bigger fish, and every time that fish gets eaten, then suddenly your valuation goes up. That's the whole premise behind this huge equity number, saying, yeah, someday, you'll be a part of this much, much bigger deal because you're going to be a part of a much bigger fish. What they don't tell you is that equity is actually in jeopardy, that if you don't meet your requirements of growth, or if you do something that they view as being inappropriate or egregious within the practice, they can fire you, they can pull the equity, they can dilute it. They can dilute it just automatically if for some reason the DSO itself is suffering financially. Okay, so like Smile Brands in Oregon announced to doctors about a year and a half ago that, you know what, we now have all these new equity partners that are called banks because we're not making our payments. So it appears to be one thing, but it's not. It's just designed to make you go, oh my goodness, I can't believe somebody's going to pay me that amount for my practice. Okay. But if you really want to see what you're getting paid, look at the cash they're offering you. Look at how much less you're going to be paid for the next 5 years. And then realize, oh, I'm really paying back all the cash they gave me up front. And sometimes even less than that. All right. And then I don't own my practice after year 5. If I want to continue to work in this town, I probably can't because I've got a non-compete, and the equity doesn't materialize. It can materialize, frankly, for some of the early entrants, okay? That, again, Ponzi scheme idea, get in early, get in now, get the big win, because there may be another group that buys your group. But in terms of the big number, it doesn't happen.
And Bob, two final questions.
Yeah.
How do we find out more about what you're up to regarding your consulting group, the podcast? And then number two, just some final comments or words of advice for the young dentists out there.
Sure. Well, how do you find out on the podcast is, listen to Just Say No to the DSO. We're in season 3 right now. We're interviewing a lot of movers and shakers inside the industry, or those that have seen it through another industry. Like I interviewed Dr. Robert McNamara, who saw this whole thing happen as a ER doc over the past 35 years. So that's where you can learn about that. If you want to contact me and find out about the associate hiring side of things or dental consulting, it's real easy. Just you can email me at bob@spielconsulting.com. And that's spelled S as in Sam, P as in Paul, IEL consulting, all one word.com. Or they can also just text me at 208-520-6900. I respond to all of those. And lastly, as a young doc, what would be the advice that I'd give you to be able to continue to take this ride and make dentistry something that's really exciting for you? Keep learning, keep growing. All right. There's this impression that school is designed to teach you the answers. And like my good friend Kirk Barron once said, school is designed to help you ask better questions because the questions are the answers. So as you continue to ask yourself, how can I continue to be a better leader? How can I be a better team builder? How can I continue to improve my clinical skills so that I can serve more people, so that I can continue to serve them at a higher level and even do it faster? those questions themselves will continue to make dentistry exciting. It will make this whole ride worth it, and it will also make it in the end the best investment that you've ever made because you invested in yourself and your practice.
That's great stuff. Bob, thank you so much. It was an excellent episode. Really appreciate your time.
You're welcome, Eric. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to the Stress-Free Dentist podcast. And don't hesitate to get in touch with me at info@thestressfreedentist.com. And if you haven't already, please subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Until the next episode, I'm Dr. Eric Block, the Stress-Free Dentist.